Well, here in the United States, we're about ready to go into week number 2 of the government shutdown. Now, back about 20 years ago, we have had a number of shutdowns. Government shutdown has happened through more than one administration. Probably the most recent one was back around 2013 when we had the Obamacare shutdown. And that required America to live through about, I think it was around 17 days of the government being closed down because the Democrats wanted Obamacare to be put into law. I remember Nancy Pelosi going on TV saying, well, we don't know what's in the Obamacare bill until we pass it. Well, once they found out when they passed it, everybody, you, me, and everybody in America was legally required to have health insurance. You had to fill it out on your tax form that you had the health insurance. So people went in and bought the Obamacare. Because remember, President went on TV and said, oh, if you like your doctor, you're going to keep your doctor. You like your health plan, you're going to keep your health plan. Well, did that happen for everybody on Obamacare? I beg to say no. But turns out the rates for Obamacare have been going up and up and up. So what the Congress did a number of years ago was to subsidize, put in taxpayer money into the insurance companies to subsidize the Obamacare. So they can say to people, well, your care is not that much, your health care doesn't cost that much because it was being subsidized by the government, by your taxpayer dollars. Well, ultimately, in the big, beautiful bill passed by Congress, there was a sunset legislation on that subsidizing, a sunset legislation. And that legislation, frankly, is going to happen at the end of this year when the subsidies go away. Now, what happens? Well, the Democrats are yelling and screaming, saying, wait, we got to do something about this, or millions of people on Obamacare will find out they can't afford it because it was made so costly in the beginning. And we have to keep subsidizing it and keep adding to the national debt because we don't want people to realize we sold them a bill of goods, which they did. Sorry. So there's a situation involving the subsidization of Obamacare so your rates won't go up. Oh, they're going to go up, all right, but not as much when the subsidies go off because then they will go up big time. All right, secondary thing they're concerned about, the Democrats, they want to reinstitute, if you will, PBS and NPR. They want to bring it back. They're saying, hey, we realize that not many people see it, watch it, or what have you, but we want to bring it back because we owe our constituents that. So that's what they're arguing about. That's one thing. And then the other thing, this is a big one. This has to do with illegals and Medicaid. Now, there's a difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is federal government stuff. I mean, if you're on retirement, you got Medicare rather, you pay for that, comes out of your retirement, your Social Security check. But Medicaid is handled by the states. Each state has their own Medicaid program. Now, much of what happens in that Medicaid program is in fact paid for by the federal government. But the states themselves have to pony up a whole bunch of money themselves because they take care of low-income people in their particular state. Well, here's the problem that happens. Let's say that some person or persons, a family of illegals, somebody gets sick. Somebody gets the strep throat. All right, let's use that. And where do they go? They go to the hospital. They go to the emergency ward because more often than not, those families do not have a regular doctor, a family doctor like most of us have. Their medical care comes through the hospitals. And why? Because they know that the hospitals want to get their money. So they're going to turn that particular person who is illegal, doesn't matter to the hospitals, they don't care. They're not going to ask. They're going to turn them into what is called emergency Medicaid. They are put on the rolls of Medicaid, so the hospital gets paid. They want their money. So as a result, hospitals are going to get their money, and the Medicaid, the federal government portion of it, pays for the illegals to get their insurance. And they be served by the hospitals because that's where they go. If you've ever been to an emergency room of a hospital, you know how long it takes to get yourself served or taken care of because so many people are in there who don't have insurance. That's their form of medical care, emergency room. Well, The government put new laws in the big, beautiful bill that says, hey, if you want to get onto Medicaid, you're going to have to do community service or find a job. I think its amount is 80 hours a month you have to put in time. It doesn't mean getting a job, but you have to have public service. Go work for a PSA, a food bank, whatever. So, and of course, there's many people on Medicaid and on food stamps, because that's another place this is coming into. You want to get your food stamps if you're not part of the working society. We have a thing called the workforce development, the workforce situation. What percent of people in the workforce are actually working? Well, it's around 60-some% of the people who are actually working. We have people in America who have never worked a day in their life, and yet they're collecting benefits from the government, whether it be food stamps. And remember, the government just said no more snacks, no more bad food for you in food stamps. You get the stuff that you need, the proper nutrition stuff. No more candy, no more treats, no more sugary stuff. And there's a certain faction of the society that's up complaining, saying, how dare they take away that? Our kids need sugary snacks. People never worked. And they're saying, well, you want your food stamps? You're going to have to work. You're going to have to go out there and show that you're earning it, trying to get a job or working at a public service position. All right, so that's one of the problems. So now we have the illegals in the hospitals, and we're trying to get that ended where they can't get that anymore. Well, all of this requires increasing the budget by roughly $1.2 trillion just in this year alone. And that's what the Democrats are fighting for. Now, the president says, okay, I'm going to lay off 100,000 people that you can't bring back because they're not funded under the normal programs that fund people in government. They're going to say, no, we're going to eliminate 100,000 people. And the other thing the Democrats want is to say, hey, the president can't tell us how we can spend our money. He can't, after we approve the money, we're going to spend it place X, place Y, place Z, whatever it is. The president can't come in and say, no, you're not going to do that. I'm not going to let you spend it. They want to make sure he can't do that. Those are some of the things, folks, are being argued about. The biggest one you talk about is the Medicare, the aid for illegals. It's because they go to hospitals. Hospitals want their money. Hospitals put them on Medicaid. The government ends up paying for that. That's the story. You may not like what you're hearing, but that's why this détente, if you will, has been going on. It's in its second week. How much longer can it go? I don't know. Will somebody bend and finally get 60 votes in Congress and the Senate? I'm not sure. Who's going to win this battle? I don't know. Republicans want a clean bill through the end of the year, not for the next 2 years, 1 year, whatever, just through the end of the year. The Democrats, they want the money increase now. They want to change the rules and change the laws that have already been put in the books. That's where we stand. And the reason is Chuck Schumer, the head of the House or head of the Senate, he's real worried because he's not the person you need to go to talk about stopping the event going on, stopping the shutdown of the government. Ocasio-Cortez, she says, you come to me. And the reason is simple. She's looking at running in the New York State for Chuck Schumer's position as a senator. And you think he's not worried about it? The left is taking over the Democrats. Not just small, but big. I mean, really big. Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, the left is starting to take over the entire Democrat Party. And when they do, stand back, folks. It ain't going to be pretty. Now you know. And now let's see what happens.